Pull over. Now. The command from the back seat cut through the hum of the air conditioning like a knife. Through the bulletproof tinted windows of his black Escalade, Michael Jackson was staring at something that made him forget he was already 40 minutes late for his recording session at Chicago's most exclusive studio. On the bustling streets of downtown Chicago, a young boy was moving like he'd been touched by magic itself, and what Michael witnessed in the next few minutes would shatter everything he thought he knew about raw talent. It was a scorching July afternoon in 2005, the kind of day when the concrete seemed to shimmer with heat waves, and 12-year-old Devonte Williams was setting up his usual spot on the corner of State Street in Madison. The worn piece of cardboard he'd been using for months was fraying at the edges, held together with silver duct tape that caught the sunlight. His hand-me-down Air Jordans were 2 sizes too big, inherited from a cousin who'd outgrown them, and his white t-shirt had a small tear near the collar that his mother had mended with careful stitches. But none of that mattered when the music started playing. Devonte had been coming to this exact corner every weekend for 8 months, ever since that devastating phone call when his mother Carmen lost her job at the automotive parts factory. The plant had closed down, taking 400 jobs with it, leaving families like the Williams struggling to keep their heads above water. With his father completely out of the picture since Devonte was 7, and 3 younger siblings at home, Maria, 9, Jose, 6, and baby Isabella, just 3. Every single dollar Devonte earned from street dancing went straight into the family's grocery fund and helped pay the rent on their cramped 2-bedroom apartment on Chicago's South Side. His mother, Carmen, worked the night shift cleaning office buildings downtown, scrubbing floors and emptying trash cans from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. for barely above minimum wage. She left for work after putting the younger kids to bed, trusting Devonte to watch over them until she returned home exhausted in the early morning. Carmen had no idea that her eldest son was spending his Saturdays performing for strangers on busy street corners, risking getting in trouble with authorities or worse. If she knew, she'd probably lock him in their apartment until he turned 18. But Devonte couldn't help himself. Dancing wasn't just a hobby or a way to make money. It was the only thing that made him feel alive, the only escape from the crushing weight of responsibility that sat on his 12-year-old shoulders like a backpack full of stones. As he carefully placed his battery-powered speaker on the sidewalk, Devonte took a deep breath and looked around at the familiar chaos of downtown Chicago. Street vendors hawked hot dogs and pretzels. Business people in expensive suits hurried past talking on their phones. Tourists snapped photos of the historic buildings. And the constant stream of traffic created a symphony of urban sounds that had become the soundtrack to his weekend performances. Today felt different somehow. The crowd seemed more energetic. The sun was hitting the pavement at just the right angle, and Devonte had been practicing a new routine all week that he couldn't wait to debut. He'd spent hours in their tiny bathroom, the only space in their apartment where he could move freely, perfecting each step while watching Michael Jackson videos on his cracked phone screen. As the opening synthesizer notes of "Smooth Criminal" began pumping through his speaker, Devonte closed his eyes and let the music wash over him like a wave. He'd studied every single Michael Jackson video on YouTube until he could mirror each movement perfectly, analyzing the way the King of Pop shifted his weight, how he used his hands to tell a story, the precise timing of each pop and lock. In their cramped bathroom, he'd practiced for hours in front of the cracked mirror, perfecting the anti-gravity lean, the spins, the signature walk that had made his idol famous. But something magical happened when Devonte started dancing. The shy kid who barely spoke up in school, who got nervous ordering food at restaurants, who preferred to blend into the background wherever he went, completely disappeared. In his place emerged a performer who commanded attention, who could make time stop and crowds gather with nothing but movement and music. The transformation was immediate and breathtaking. His body seemed to flow like water, defying gravity and logic as he glided across the rough concrete. Tourists stopped mid-stride, their cameras forgotten as they watched this young artist pour his soul into every gesture. Office workers on their lunch breaks found themselves pausing, their sandwiches growing cold as they became mesmerized by the boy who danced like his life depended on it. A crowd began forming in a perfect circle around Devonte, but he was lost in his own world, completely absorbed in the music and movement. Each step was deliberate, each spin calculated, each pose held for exactly the right amount of time. He wasn't just copying Michael Jackson's moves. He was interpreting them, adding his own flair, his own story, his own pain and hope into every gesture. But 3 blocks away, trapped in the typical downtown Chicago traffic that moved like molasses, Michael Jackson was getting increasingly frustrated. He was already late for a recording session that had taken months to schedule, and the gridlock seemed to stretch endlessly ahead of his convoy of black vehicles. His manager, Frank DeLeo, was making increasingly frantic phone calls to the studio, trying to buy them more time. That's when Michael heard something that made his heart skip a beat. His own music, but performed with a passion and soul that cut through the noise of the city like a laser beam. The sound was coming from somewhere ahead, carried on the summer breeze, and it reminded him instantly of why he'd fallen in love with dancing in the first place. "Driver, what's that sound?" Michael asked, pressing his face against the tinted window and trying to locate the source of the music. James Mitchell, his longtime driver and trusted friend, pointed toward the growing crowd 3 blocks ahead. "Looks like a street performer, Mr. Jackson. Some kid dancing to your music." Michael squinted through the heat waves rising from the asphalt, trying to get a better look. Even from this distance, he could see that something special was happening. The crowd was growing larger by the minute, phones were coming out, and there was an energy in the air that you only felt when witnessing something truly extraordinary. "I need to see this up close," Michael whispered, his hand already moving toward the door handle. "Sir, maybe we should keep moving," James cautioned, glancing nervously at the crowd. "There's already a lot of people there, and if they recognize you, things could get out of control pretty quickly." Frank DeLeo looked up from his phone. "Michael, we're already 40 minutes late. The studio time is costing us a fortune, and we've got that conference call with Sony at 4. "No," Michael interrupted, his voice filled with a wonder that his team rarely heard anymore. "This is exactly where I need to be. Sometimes the universe puts you exactly where you're supposed to be, even when you think you should be somewhere else." Meanwhile, Devonte was deep into his routine, executing a perfect anti-gravity lean that drew gasps from the growing audience. His small body seemed to defy physics as he tilted at an impossible angle, holding the pose for a full 8 seconds before smoothly transitioning into a series of spins that would have impressed professional backup dancers. He was so completely focused on his performance, so absorbed in the music and the movement, that he didn't notice the black Escalade that had pulled over at the edge of the crowd, or the man in the signature black fedora who was now standing at the back of the audience, watching with growing amazement. The whispers started slowly, rippling through the crowd like waves. "Is that? No way. Someone's filming this. That's really him. Michael Jackson is here. Should we say something? Don't scare him away." But Michael's attention was completely and utterly fixed on Devonte. The way the boy moved reminded him powerfully of himself at that age. The pure joy that radiated from every gesture. The complete dedication to the craft that blocked out everything else in the world. The way dance could transport you to another dimension entirely. This kid had something special, something that couldn't be taught in any dance studio or music school. This was raw talent, pure and unfiltered. As Smooth Criminal reached its dramatic climax, Devonte launched into the most challenging part of his routine. A series of rapid-fire spins, followed by the signature Michael Jackson toe stand that required perfect balance and core strength. The crowd held its collective breath as the young dancer pushed his 12-year-old body to its limits, executing moves that professional dancers spent years perfecting. When the final notes faded and the last echo bounced off the surrounding buildings, Devonte struck the classic Michael Jackson pose. One hand on his hip, the other pointing skyward, his head tilted at the exact angle he'd practiced thousands of times in that cracked bathroom mirror. The crowd erupted in thunderous applause, phones recording from every conceivable angle, voices shouting praise and encouragement. Money began flying into Devonte's cardboard box. Quarters, dollar bills, even a few 20s from tourists who had just witnessed something they'd never forget. But when Devonte's eyes swept across the audience to acknowledge their appreciation, his entire world stopped spinning. Standing there at the back of the crowd, wearing dark sunglasses and that unmistakable smile that had graced 1,000 magazine covers, was Michael Jackson himself. Not a look-alike, not someone dressed up for a costume party, but the actual, real, living legend. "Oh my God," Devonte breathed, his voice barely audible over the continued cheering. "This can't be real. This isn't happening." His knees started to shake, and for a moment he thought he might collapse right there on the concrete. The boy who had just performed with the confidence of a seasoned professional suddenly felt like what he was, a 12-year-old kid from the South Side who was face to face with his biggest hero. Michael stepped forward slowly, carefully navigating through the crowd that was now buzzing with excitement and recognition. He removed his sunglasses with deliberate ceremony, revealing those famous eyes that had captivated audiences for decades, and flashed that iconic grin that could light up entire stadiums. "That was absolutely incredible, young man," Michael said, his voice carrying clearly over the crowd noise. "Where in the world did you learn to move like that?" Devonte's knees nearly buckled. The Michael Jackson, the king of pop, the greatest entertainer who had ever lived, was not only talking to him, but complimenting his dancing. This had to be a dream. In a few minutes, he'd wake up on the couch in their tiny apartment, and none of this would have happened. I watch your videos every single day, Mr. Jackson," Devonte stammered, his voice cracking with emotion. "I practice in my bedroom, in the bathroom, anywhere I can find space. My mom thinks I'm crazy for dancing to the same songs over and over again for hours." The crowd pressed closer, everyone wanting to witness this magical moment unfold. Security personnel were already making their way through the people, trying to maintain some semblance of order, but Michael waved them off with a subtle gesture. "What's your name, son?" Michael asked, kneeling down to Devonte's eye level so they could speak more intimately despite the chaos around them. "Devonte Williams, sir. I'm 12 years old and you're everything to me. You're the reason I dance. You're the reason I believe in magic." Michael's eyes glistened with genuine emotion. This boy reminded him so powerfully of himself at that age. The raw passion for music and movement, the dedication that bordered on obsession, the way dance could be both escape and expression, sanctuary and celebration. But more than that, he could see something in Devonte's eyes that he recognized from his own childhood. The hunger, the dream, the desperate hope that somehow, some way, dancing could change everything. "Devonte," Michael said softly, reaching into his black leather jacket pocket, "I want you to have something very special." The crowd fell silent as Michael pulled out one of his signature white gloves. Not just any glove, but one of the actual gloves he'd worn during the filming of the Black or White music video. The glove was pristine, carefully preserved, and it seemed to glow in the afternoon sunlight. The collective gasp from the crowd was audible. People were frantically taking photos and videos, realizing they were witnessing a moment that would become part of entertainment history. "This glove has been with me through some of my most important performances," Michael continued, placing it gently in Devonte's trembling hands. "But I think it belongs with someone who truly understands what it means to dance from the soul, someone who reminds me why I fell in love with music in the first place." Devonte stared at the glove in complete disbelief, tears streaming down his face. He'd seen this exact glove in music videos, in concert footage, in his dreams, and now it was in his hands, real and tangible and impossible. "I can't take this, Mr. Jackson," Devonte whispered. "It's too important. It belongs in a museum or something. Music is meant to be passed down from one generation to the next, Devonte. Talent like yours is meant to be nurtured and celebrated. Promise me you'll never stop dancing, no matter what obstacles you face." Then Michael's eyes lit up with sudden inspiration, that spark of creativity that had driven him to become the greatest entertainer of all time. "You know what? Let's do this together. Would you like to dance with me, right here, right now?" The crowd went absolutely wild. This was beyond anything anyone could have imagined when they woke up that morning. Phones were recording from every angle. People were shouting with excitement, and word was spreading rapidly through social media that something unprecedented was happening on State Street. Devonte nodded eagerly, unable to form words. This was the moment every young dancer dreamed of. The chance to perform alongside their idol, to share the stage, even if that stage was just a city sidewalk, with greatness itself. Michael signaled to James, who quickly retrieved a portable speaker from the Escalade. The crowd made room, forming a large circle around the two dancers as anticipation reached a fever pitch. "Let's give these people a show they'll never forget," Michael said with that mischievous smile his fans knew and loved. The same smile that had launched 1,000 dreams and inspired millions of people around the world. As the opening bass line of Billie Jean began pumping through the speaker, something truly magical happened. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, and Devonte Williams, a street kid with a dream, began dancing together in the middle of State Street in downtown Chicago. The transformation was immediate and breathtaking. Devonte, who moments before had been nervous and starstruck, found his confidence again as the music washed over him. He kept pace with his idol perfectly, matching Michael move for move, spin for spin. When Michael moonwalked backward across the concrete, Devonte moonwalked right beside him, their movements synchronized as if they'd been rehearsing together for years. The crowd swelled to over 300 people. Traffic came to a complete standstill as drivers abandoned their cars to witness this once-in-a-lifetime moment. Even the Chicago police officers who arrived to manage the situation found themselves watching in awe rather than breaking up what was technically an unlawful assembly. For 4 minutes and 57 seconds, there was no superstar and no street performer. There was no difference in age, fame, or bank account. There were just two artists sharing their love of music with the world, connected by the universal language of dance. When Michael executed his signature spin and pose, Devonte mirrored him flawlessly. When Devonte added his own unique flair to a sequence, Michael incorporated it seamlessly into his own movements. They fed off each other's energy, creating something new and beautiful that neither could have achieved alone. When the song ended, the applause was thunderous and sustained, echoing off the buildings and seeming to shake the very ground beneath their feet. People were crying, cheering, and frantically posting videos that would be viewed millions of times within hours and become permanent fixtures in internet history. Michael put his arm around Devonte's shoulder and addressed the crowd with the same presence and grace he brought to sold-out stadiums around the world. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice carrying clearly over the noise, "you have just witnessed something truly special. This young man has reminded me why I became a performer in the first place. He's shown me that talent, passion, and dedication know no boundaries. Remember the name Devonte Williams. Mark my words, you're going to be hearing it again." The crowd erupted again, chanting Devonte's name as if he were already a star. But Michael wasn't finished. He turned back to Devonte and spoke quietly, away from the cameras and the noise, his words meant for the boy's ears alone. "I'm going to give you my manager's personal phone number," Michael said, pulling out a business card and writing something on the back. "We're going to make sure you get the professional training and opportunities you deserve. Talent like yours shouldn't be performing on street corners. It should be on the world's biggest stages." 6 months later, Devonte Williams stood in a state-of-the-art dance studio in Los Angeles, working with choreographers who had shaped the careers of the biggest names in entertainment. Michael Jackson had been true to his word in every possible way. Not only had he arranged for Devonte to receive professional training at the most prestigious dance academy in the country, but he had also established a full scholarship fund to cover the boy's education through college. Carmen Williams, who had been working 3 jobs just to keep food on the table, was able to quit 2 of them after Michael quietly arranged for ongoing financial support for the family. They moved out of their cramped Southside apartment into a beautiful house in a safe neighborhood where the kids could play outside without fear. But perhaps most importantly, Devonte never forgot the lessons from that life-changing July afternoon on State Street. The importance of staying humble, of working hard, of never giving up on your dreams, no matter how impossible they might seem. Today, Devonte Williams is a world-renowned professional dancer and choreographer, working with the biggest artists in the music industry. His name appears in the credits of Grammy-winning albums and chart-topping music videos. In his Beverly Hills dance studio, he keeps that white glove in a place of honor, not as a museum piece gathering dust, but as a daily reminder of the moment when recognition and kindness changes life forever. Every weekend, without fail, he returns to community centers on Chicago's South Side, teaching dance to kids who remind him of himself. Children from struggling families, kids who dance because they have to, not because they want to. He always tells them the same thing Michael told him that day. Dance from your heart, practice every single day, and never give up on your dreams. You never know who might be watching. The video of their impromptu street performance has been viewed over 150 million times across various platforms, inspiring countless young dancers around the world. But for Devonte, the real magic wasn't captured on any camera. It was that moment when his hero looked into his eyes and saw not just a street performer trying to make a few dollars, but an artist worthy of respect, investment, and belief. Some encounters change lives in ways that ripple out for generations. Some moments transcend ordinary experience and become the stuff of legend. And sometimes, when the music is right and hearts are open, magic happens exactly where you least expect it to. On a busy street corner in downtown Chicago, between a superstar at the height of his fame and a boy with nothing but a dream, destiny made its move. This story serves as a powerful reminder that talent can emerge from anywhere, that kindness has the power to transform not just individual lives, but entire families, and that music truly is the universal language that connects us all across every barrier and boundary. Because sometimes the most important performances don't happen on grand stages in front of thousands of screaming fans. Sometimes they happen on ordinary street corners, where dreams are waiting to be discovered and lives are ready to be changed forever. All it takes is someone willing to stop, to listen, and to believe in the power of possibility.